Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are pleased to welcome Jeff Harry, the positive psychology play speaker from Rediscover Your Play. Jeff specializes in integrating positive psychology with play to transform workplaces, fostering psychological safety, and helping teams and individuals overcome their most significant challenges through a play oriented approach. He's recognized as one of the top 100 HR influencers by Bamboo HR and Engagedly. Jeff has been featured in prominent publications including the New York Times, Mashable, HuffPost, Wired, NPR, National Geographic, and Forbes. Over the last 15 years, he has partnered with leading organizations such as Google, Southwest Airlines, Adobe, the NFL, Amazon, and Facebook, assisting teams in incorporating more play into their daily routines to enhance motivation and creativity. Today, Jeff will share his insights on how play can be a powerful tool for leadership and team development, offering practical strategies to create healthier, more dynamic workplaces. I am so excited to have him join us. So please join me in welcoming Jeff Harry.
Let's go.
Yay, Jeff.
Let's go.
Yes.
I'm excited about this. Let's do this.
So glad to have you. Let's start with, can you discuss the journey that led you to establish Rediscover Your Play and focus on making play a professional tool in the workplace?
Sure. And first off, I love the Lego background, by the way. One of my favorite backgrounds of all time.
Yes,
and I do a lot of these, so that's saying a lot.
Yay.
So the short Batman origin story is, do you remember the movie Big with Tom Hanks?
Yes.
So I saw that when I was in third grade, and I was like, that dude, you can play with toys for a living? So I started writing toy companies in third grade, and I was doing spam before spam was in the thing. I was like sending like so many letters, handwritten, and then later on my word processor. That's what dates me. And it took like 15 years, but then I got into the toy industry. And have you ever gotten exactly what you've always wanted? Right. And then been so disappointed when you got it, right? Like there was no toys, no joy, no high fives, no play, no Lego,
Right.
no. So I was like, what am I doing? So I left New York. I came to the San Francisco Bay Area. I had no clue what I was doing. I looked for a job on this very safe site called Craigslist, where you can like buy furniture in a dark alleyway.
Right.
And I found a job teaching kids engineering with Lego. And it was kind of like a joke of the job at the time because it was like a part-time job, like 15 hours a week, paying like $150 to $200 a week. But I got to play for a living, and I just joined it. There was like 7 dudes at the time. And together we were able to figure out a way to build it. And we built it into one of the largest Lego STEM organizations in the US. Like it was the largest Lego inspired STEM organization in the US at one point. And we did it all by playing. Like we had no clue what we were doing. We had no business plan. We picked cities we thought were fun. We picked people that we thought were fun. We were like, who wants to go to Austin? Yes. Who wants to go to Montana? Maybe later. We just randomly chose stuff. But it grew really fast. And it was because like we started in 2004 when there was no STEM thing. There were no other nerd camps, as people would call us. Right. So we were an outlet for kids that didn't like sports. So it became really popular. That's when I started partnering with all these like companies, Facebook, Google, Adobe. At one point we partnered with Lego and traveled like, 5 years with them, doing Lego Kids Fest. But yeah, we just did all these really cool things, building gigantic stuff out of Lego and teaching all these kids through Lego. And while I did like team building events for so many of these companies, I realized, and these are top tech companies, right? Not fun places to work. They had slides, they had ping pong tables, they had all this stuff, but in a lot of places, super stressed out. So in like 2019, I put together a workshop, almost like a joke with my friend Gary Ware, called Dealing with A-Holes in the Workplace Through Play. Yeah. And it was so popular, it got us into Inbound, which was the largest marketing conference in the world at the time. It got us into South by Southwest. And then we even went to Australia to do it. And then by the time we arrived back from Australia, that was February of 2020. And that's when like everything shut down, right? So then I just started making up other talks that I thought interesting and just hopping on a lot of podcasts and just speaking virtually. And then ever since, I've just been speaking for a living.
That is amazing. How do you anticipate the role of play enhancing leadership and team dynamics evolving in the next few years?
So I learned this from a play mentor of mine, Kevin Carroll. He introduced me to this author called Stephen Johnson, who would say you'll find the future where people are having the most fun. And if you look at it, it's very true. Like Amazon back in 1998 was the place to be because they were solving the most interesting tech issues in the world. So a lot of people just flew in just to be around Bezos. And then he became Lex Luthor. Now people don't want to hang out with him anymore, right? But like there's a point where who in your industry is having the most fun, who's taking the most risk, who's being the most innovative, creative. During the pandemic, it was TikTok, it was Hulu, it was Netflix. Like look, it was NVIDIA at the time. Look at the ones that are taking the risks, that are trying things out, that are not as worried about failing, right? Yeah. And then you look at the other organizations that are playing it safe, Macy's, Sears, Blockbuster Video. Blockbuster could have bought Netflix for $10 million, but they were like, nah, we'll just keep doing what we've been doing. We love stores, right? Stores are the best. Malls are always going to be here. You know, like, so this idea of like leaders have to embrace the concept of play or they're just going to become obsolete, right? You know, and I don't think a lot of organizations understand that, especially when they get to a certain size and then they're so worried about losing stuff at that point, losing money. They come from such a scarcity complex and they're so focused on their quarterly earnings that they put themselves in a really dangerous situation where they're not innovative anymore and then they're just slow.
Yeah, I've worked in large corporations before in the training and development space and remember encouraging to bring play into the workplace. And it was always, no, we don't have time for that. No, we have a sales kickoff or we have this or that we need to focus on. And seeing the sales representatives and some of those others that would work remote, just almost like jumping out of their skin because they can't handle sitting at that table. What are some ways that you have seen an improvement, or maybe you've been able to quantify the change in how behavior is modified through play? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's tackle it first from the training standpoint, right? What's the first thing that ever gets cut whenever a recession happens? Training, coaching, development. Yeah. Right. But when you look at the studies, right, Forbes came out with this article last year that a third of people quit because 82% of managers are not trained. They're either not trained at all or they're trained really badly, right? And they're not the right people for their job, right? Okay. There's so many people that got promoted just because they were like, oh, you breathe, you can do the job well, all right, you get to be the next job, even though they don't like people, like they don't like leading people. So this whole concept of like, how do you argue for play? It's just like, well, how's your retention going right now, right? How's your productivity? How's your engagement, right? Like, how's your psychological safety? All of this stuff can be addressed through play, right? And it's amazing how when they cut training out of budgets, that's when retention gets worse. That's when your sales go down. So I directly tie it to the money. I'm just like, well, how's it working out? Let's even do it with two sales teams, one where they can be creative and they can follow their flow work and they can follow their play and their zone of genius, right? Mm-hmm. And they pick the work that they forget about time, right? Yep. Let's measure them versus your team that's doing it the standard way that we've always done it. And let's just see. You already know the answer. I don't even need to point it out, but you already know, right? So I challenge them directly, right? And I don't tiptoe around it.
So how often do you want to, or are you able to come back and say, see, I told you so?
Well, I try not to say that part because people don't want to hear that part, but it's just like, you just look at it through the numbers, right? So I'll ask them, how's your retention in the last 6 months since we've started implementing this stuff? How's your engagement, right? How are your surveys? How are your performance evaluations, right? And when I say engagement, like how much are they happier to be at work? Because I talk a lot about how I make work suck less, because a lot of work does straight sucks right now, right? It's 2,000 to 2,500 hours a year you're at work. That does not count your commute if you're commuting, right? So why would you ever think that someone that is not having any fun at work is going to be very excited to come to work, right?
And why is the mentality that that play at work can't be productive? I'm curious, because there is a lot of pushback on play at work.
Yeah, because the leaders are not fun, because the leaders are control freaks, because play is not linear. A lot of times you give someone flow work, you don't know what's going to happen. Here, I'll give you a great example. Google used to do this, right? Way back in the day, used to have something called the Google 20% rule, where they would give their staff a fifth of their time, 5 hours a week, to do whatever you wanted, as long as it benefit Google, right? Make up whatever software you want, play around with stuff. What came from that? Gmail, Google News, Google Earth, AdSense. The foundations of Google came from play. So if you're like looking at where's the innovation in your organization, it's in the play. And as long as like you have people that are, you know, with a certain type A personality, it's like, we got to do it this way, and it's always going to be this way, and very rigid about it, and not giving people freedom to find their zone of genius, their flow work, you know, they're not in control. Play is not a controllable thing, and you can't measure it until after the fact. But a lot of research is that way. A lot of people experiment that way. But I think, and let me know if you want me to get into this, but I think this obsession with quarterly results, right, and constantly turning a profit within like 6 months has dramatically destroyed the creativity and innovation of some organizations. And then what you find is then you watch startups just pass these organizations because they're so freaked out about making a mistake or getting sued or whatever, that they're not innovative anymore. So then they get replaced.
Yeah. So you talk about psychology and psychological play at work, and what practices do you implement to ensure the psychological safety and inclusivity in your organizations?
So I tell people not to play if they're not ready. If they're not ready, like if the playground isn't safe and there are bullies on the playground, you don't have people play. Like if you have some toxic person or multiple toxic people, and then you're like, hey, we're gonna do an escape room. Like, no one's going to come out and be like, now we're friends, right? They're still going to hate each other. They may even hate each other more, right? So I am like, okay, let's first address work culture is defined by the worst behavior tolerated. What's the worst behavior you're currently tolerating? Because guess what? That's your values, not the things listed in your mission statement, Rever. It's what's out there, the actions of the toxic person, as long as you let that person run amok. So you have to first address that person, right? And then second, you have to understand your staff's like languages of appreciation. You have to understand, like, is there any trauma that your staff is dealing with, maybe from this job and what has happened to them with their former leader, or maybe it is from another job. But you have to first build that trust with them and that rapport so they feel comfortable enough to actually share with you, right? Then you have to give in their language of appreciation. And only after you've done multiple things like that and your values are communicated through your action are you then being like, okay, it's now time to play. But if not, then you're not ready, which is fine.
You mentioned the escape room, and that to me equals a forced play scenario where
I call it forced fun. I hate forced fun.
Yeah, everybody has to come to this team building exercise. Oh, I'm sorry. We have lives outside of work that are equally important, and you're basically telling me that that's not important, that I have to be here for you. And that's so challenging.
Well, that's the most important part of play. Play is voluntary.
Should be. Yes.
There's choice involved.
Right.
Once you force it upon people, then it's not play anymore, right?
Yeah.
So if you're like doing, Walmart used to have everyone sing songs at the beginning of the day. If you look at some of those videos on YouTube, the sadness in people's eyes, how much they hate it. You're almost making people hate not just fun, but hate your organization when you force fun upon them. Don't bring the whole team to go bowling. Like, that's not how you're building, what I suggest when I talk about play. I'm talking about identifying people's zone of genius, identifying the work where they forget about time, identifying their flow work. If you help them do their flow work on their own time, when it suits them, when they've chosen to do it, then they will play when they feel comfortable and ready. So you're not telling them when and when not to play. You're giving them an option and providing the playground, and then they decide when they want to go out there.
You mentioned in one of your talks that's on your YouTube channel, and I enjoyed it, Chad being that when the lowest denominator of what behavior you allow in the workplace, and how once that is addressed, then the other Chads get to go too, because they recognize it. Like you said, they're not going to get away with it anymore. And I think that just speaks volumes to how we are, who the lowest level of behavior and acceptance is what we allow in this workplace.
Yeah.
And when leaders can I hate to say put your foot down, but when they can say, no, we're not going to do this anymore, we're going to raise the bar and do this way instead. I think that just speaks volumes to how once that level is set, the other people recognize, oh, okay, so this is how it's going to be. And they step up to perform even better and even more than they did before.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember being at an organization where I took a vacation. I went to Brazil, and I was at like Iguazu Falls, which connects like 3 different countries. And I was like, oh my gosh, this waterfall is amazing. It's been around like 80,000 years or more. And I remember sitting there and being like, okay, from now on, anything that I do, I'm going to make clear decisions, right? I'm going to be decisive, but I'm going to come with it with compassion, though. And as soon as I flew back, I let go of our most toxic person at our job. And the tone that set caused so many other toxic people to start leaving, because we were like, no, not happening anymore. And the thing, and I talk about this in my dealing with, A-Hole's workshop, right? Dealing with toxicity workshop, is that toxic leaders or toxic colleagues, they're fragile. They're very fragile. So, and they hate boundaries. They hate them. So once you address your inner critic, right, that inner toxic person, and you realize you're like, well, Chad is not as qualified as me, right? I actually should be Chad's boss, right? And then the next time Chad cuts you off and you turn to him, you're like, don't ever cut me off like that, Chad. All of a sudden they recoil, and then everyone else is like, oh, look at that. Samantha just stood up to Chad. Maybe I'll stand up to Chad. And then when everyone starts standing up, oh, they quiver, they wither,
right?
Like Voldemort in the last Harry Potter movie. Like they wither away because you're not feeding their energy anymore. You're not giving them that attention, right? If anything, you're giving them pushback and being like, your days of bullying are done. Yes. And that's when they start looking for other jobs.
Yeah, impressive. How do you measure effectiveness of fun-based activities in the workplace?
Measure the effectiveness of fun-based activities. I don't know. It's tough because, like, what's the measurement of fun? What's the measurement of play?
Right.
Are you enjoying yourself? It's almost like, when a parent would come to the playground and be like, hey, kids, are you having fun? And then the kids are like, not anymore, Mom.
Right.
Like, so how do you measure it? I measure it by, like, if people stay. Right? If people are doing better work. I remember being at Riot Games, and at Riot Games, like, it's a video game company. People would hang out after work just to continue to play League of Legends, just so they could be in that community, right?
Right.
Like you see it in the actions on a regular basis. Do they want to be there? Do they do good work when they're there, right? Do they do their most creative work? And then you can see the flip side of it when you're at a tense place that's not psychologically safe, not playful. Barely anyone shares ideas, right? Like look at X, look at Twitter. Nothing innovative is coming out of there right now, right? Nothing innovative is coming out of Amazon, right? So these organizations where it's really where they drive on fear, that's their strategy, is to drive on fear. Where's the creativity, right?
Yeah.
What's the turnover like? How many people want to come and work at that organization? Those are the ways I measure it.
Yeah, and those are great ideas and good thoughts. Can you give us an example of maybe a favorite example of where play transformed a team dynamic that you were involved with and helped facilitate?
Yeah, I try not to talk about the ones that are specific to me because I want to respect their privacy. But I'll give you one that I found really powerful. There was a mayor by the name of Janelle Osborne. She's now not mayor anymore, but at one point she was a city council member, part of a very challenging, you would say, city council. But one of her favorite ways to play was debate. So at every city council meeting, she was great at debating them, and she was grounded and calm and dealt with a lot of toxic, misogynistic behavior, but stood her ground. And because of that, a lot of them would get embarrassed every city council meeting, because these things are filmed, by the way, right? That eventually she became mayor. And she was able to bring in other city council members that were much more healthy, which then impacted not only the council, but the entire city, right? So like now, how long did that take? 3 to 5 years. So if you're embracing your play, if you're allowing yourself to really be in it, you have to decide, okay, do I want to be here? Because they say a lot of times, what is it? Your toxic boss, right? Or your boss in general has more of an impact on your mental health than your spouse or your therapist, because you spend the most time with them. So you got to decide, is this worth it? Should I be here? And if not, then I got to look for another job. And if I am, what am I doing to make sure I build allies so that I can last during this time that's going to be really challenging, because it takes time to change culture.
So you mentioned the dreaded COVID year and how things have changed so much. How do you incorporate remote workers in with the fun activities that you suggest? How do you include everybody?
Well, again, it comes down to zone of genius, flow work, right? You're not trying to have everyone play together all the time. They can. And that's, you do that at retreats, you do that. Give people an excuse to come to the office, right? Don't force them to come back to the office. That's just my feeling, right? I know you got to get people to the office because you already paid for the office, but don't force them. But if you're doing, for remote workers, it's the same idea of like, okay, what is the work that you love to do? How much of that time do I love connecting with customers. How much of your time do you spend doing that right now? 20%? That seems low. Okay, what can we do to get it up to 30 or 40%? Okay, let's figure this out, because I know this is what you want to do. What's the work you hate to do? Can we delegate that? Can we remove it? Can we just get rid of it because it's not really helpful? Do you know the amount of people that I talk to that are like, I've written so many reports that no one's ever read? Hundreds, if not thousands of hours doing that. So like, there's so much BS work out there. Identify the BS work, get rid of that, let them do their zone of genius stuff more. They'll feel more engaged. They'll feel more connected. And maybe, just maybe, because they feel more connected, they'll be more likely to come back to the office.
The crowd goes wild. I know. Can you believe it? How can my audience get in touch with you for your play, for your speaking engagements? What's the best way for them to find you?
So if you want to see my ridiculous videos, you can simply go to Jeff Harry Plays, JeffHarryPlays, and that's at LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, YouTube, all that stuff. And if you want to connect with me, and if you want to figure out ways in which we can infuse more play into your work so that work doesn't suck so much, then simply go to rediscoveryourplay.com and click the Let's Play button, and let's nerd out and figure out how we can make your staff do their most vibrant work through play.
It's amazing. Thank you. When Jeff and I first connected through a mutual contact on LinkedIn, I reached out and said, hey, can we have a chat? He's like, absolutely. We jump on the phone, and I was instantly drawn to your spirit, your vibe, your personality. You exude fun, and I love that. So if you go find Jeff on LinkedIn, find some of his videos, because when he goes to conferences, he takes his skateboard suitcase and videos rolling through all the activities. And it's just phenomenal to see how much fun you have. It's easy for someone to say, you need to have fun at work, and you need to. But if we're not living that, then that's simply unfortunate. And it's just been a pleasure. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the work that you do to bring fun to work, because we all need more of that these days. And I can't thank you enough. I appreciate your time. And I'll let you leave any parting words with our guests today for how they can have fun.
Ooh, parting words. Oh, I'll tell you this. This is really interesting. So you know Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yes.
So some people say he stole it, that it's not actually his. And in many ways he misinterpreted it, because there's something known as the Blackfoot Nation hierarchy of needs that he borrowed it from, because he was spending time with the Blackfoot Nation in Canada. And what the hierarchy of needs, the Blackfoot Nation hierarchy of needs, what is it? Self-awareness, right? Or what's the top part? I forgot what it was.
Sadly, I don't know off the top of my head.
It's just like
self-awareness sounds good.
Yeah, it's like self-awareness. That's at the bottom, right?
Ooh.
Oh, it was self-actualization.
Okay.
So self-actualization is at the bottom. Then community actualization, the concept of like us learning and figuring out who we are together, is in the middle. And then at the top is something called cultural perpetuity, which is this concept of you by yourself are insignificant, but also you are the link between your ancestors and your descendants. So everything that you transfer over, you can stop traumas, you can stop all the cycles, all the stuff. And a lot of people that have midlife crises is because they're so individualistic. And if you realize you're a part of something much bigger, part of a bigger play tapestry, then you wouldn't have that, because you realize you're contributing something much more than yourself.
Yeah. Thank you. And sadly, I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because I read a quote a long time ago that said, what can I do to make the world a better place? And then stop, and what can I do to make my country a better place? And they kept mentioning all the way down to my neighborhood, my street, my house. It's got to start with me first. And when I can recognize that I need that play to make work fun, and that it's okay, and I've got the permission to do so, that allows me to then spread that to other people and on down the line. So
exactly. And awesome. Howard Thurman would always say, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is more people to come alive. Right. So my suggestion to people, figure out what makes you come alive and play with that.
Jeff, you are very alive. I appreciate your time. You're so wonderful. Everybody reach out to Jeff Harry, and we'll catch you on the next Play for Performance. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.